Welcome to the Embodied Living podcast, a space where we will dive into the essence of being human. My name is Kirstine Ilum, and I will be your host and your guide on this journey of self-discovery. In each episode, whether it's a soulful solo exploration or a heartfelt conversation with a guest, we dive into topics like somatic therapy, personal transformation, trauma, movement practices, breathwork, presence, and much, much more about the complexity of being a human. And alongside our discussion, I will vulnerably share parts of my own journey and my own story, inviting you to join me in exploration. I've definitely danced and still is dancing on my own path of healing and integration. I believe that our bodies have this profound power to heal and transform. And as we transform internally, something beautiful happens. We ripple, change outward into the world around us. So thank you for joining me on this journey of embodied living, where we embrace the beauty of being human. Today I'm joined by someone whose work and personal story has touched me deeply. Elisabet Hammaburg is the author of the Swedish book Förstå, utmattning, or Understanding Burnout, if we were to translate the title into English. In this book, Elisabet combines her scientific background in biomedicine and neurobiology with her own powerful personal journey through exhaustion, collapse, and recovery. I first met Elisabet when she came to me for body therapy during the recovery from her second burnout. Since then, she has continued to explore and honor her body's signals, and I'm so grateful to welcome her here on the show today. Something we share, and that has shaped both of our lives in the way we work, is the experience of burnout. Though our path has been completely different, we've both had to stop, to listen, and to rebuild a life rooted in gentleness. So in a way, this is more than just an interview. It's a meeting. It's a conversation between two women who both felt the weight of exhaustion in the body and the mind, and now support others on similar journeys. We talk about the biology of burnout, the shame and the silence that often surrounds it, the role of the nervous system, and the power of returning to the body. So I hope you'll listen with an open mind and maybe even with your body. A warm, warm welcome. Warm welcome, Elisabet.
Thank you.
I'm very happy you're here. Thank you for warning.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to see what we're going to talk about today.
Me too. Before we dive in, Elisabet, I would like you to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Both who you are and where you're coming from, what field and all of that, but also after this burnout, what your relationship is to your body today. How would you introduce yourself today?
Oh, I'm more at home in my body than I think I've ever been in my life before. And that's a very nice thing. I still have my days when I am more outside my body or in my brain, but I also have tools to get myself back to the body. And right now I feel, after all these years of being tired and in fatigue and in burnout, my body is actually strong.
Oh yes, yeah.
I've come to a place where I'm actually a friend with my body, and it's a place of strength.
And that sounds really beautiful, Elisabet. Can you take me back a little bit to the beginning, when you realized you were in the middle of a burnout?
Yeah, it's almost 10 years ago now. The first episode, I have to say.
We're actually pretty synchronized. Mine
Yeah.
was 10 years ago
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
It's 10 years ago, I had no idea that I was about to approach a burnout. But I worked really, really hard on a volunteer project that didn't go very well. So I had to crisis management work for 3 months. I also had a new job and a new house and a kid he was 1.5 years. And of course, that was a lot, but I was used to doing a lot of stuff. I was used to working really hard. And I couldn't see what was approaching me, that this didn't work as it should. I know my husband tried to tell me, this is not normal, Elisabet, you can't work this much. I was really stingy and had really bad temper, probably took it out on him. But as the volunteer project approached, it was a big scout camp in the middle of the summer. I got help from my psychologist in the volunteer team, who told me, you probably can't do the job you thought you were going to do this summer. You have to step out of it. And I knew she was right, but it was really, really difficult. But every thought I had just I couldn't think a straight thought. I couldn't go in without... I didn't have the words for this at this time, but my entire stress system just went through the roof, and I couldn't think anymore. And it wasn't up till the last few weeks before that I actually got problems with sleeping.
Yeah.
That I just couldn't sleep at night. And I think that was the end towards the beginning of realizing, okay, this is not working. And so I came back from this volunteer project to my new job that I had for like 3 months, and told my boss that I think I need to be on sick leave because I think I might have a stress reaction. And I got to a really nice doctor at the company medical care, and I loved her reaction when she said that this is, of course, this is a trauma you've been through. It's not something one is supposed to handle. It's something quite big, and it wasn't really long running up time for this. If you don't calculate that I had a kid for 2 years and didn't sleep properly for a while before. And then, so I was on sick leave for on half of my time. So I worked 50% and I was home 50%. But I didn't really accept what was going on, or that there was anything in me that I needed to take care of. And I was ashamed. Because who am I when I'm not working? Who am I when I'm not running and not fixing everything for everyone else? And it was a real identity crisis. So I went to the work in the mornings. I went back home. I slept for a few hours. I was out in my garden, and I thought that, okay, I need a bit of time, and then this will all be well. And in a way, it was. I got pregnant again. I was pregnant and was, I think I went up to 100% of work a week before I went on my parental leave. So I sort of used my second parental leave to recover as well. A parental leave that I also did quite differently than the first, because this volunteer project was my outlet for all my brain work during my first parental leave, and I needed that. I needed that so much. I didn't enjoy much being on parental leave. It was very lonely, but also not lonely, because there was always a being that I needed to take care of.
Yeah.
So completely alone, but also never alone. And I needed the outlet to be an adult and think and do my budgeting and planning and stuff that I enjoyed. But during my second parental leave, I did come to a place where I didn't really need that kind of distraction. So I was more actually in tune and present, which was a very nice experience. But I still hadn't really understood what was going on. So I went back to work, got a new sort of part-time position at work, at the same work, but I did a new thing. At the same time, there was a big reorganization, and I think I had 2 or 3 colleagues leaving my unit. And I was like, who's going to take care of all this? But I also couldn't say no. I was still in my fixing mind, and that I was a very competent, maybe superhuman, that could do everything.
Pleasing a little bit.
Pleasing
maybe.
a bit,
Yeah.
of course. Being very flattered when people asked, "Can you take care of this? I know you can fix it." And I was like, "Yes, of course I can."
Big responsibility.
Yeah, big responsibility. Loved it, enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But on the same hand, I had a small voice in my head saying, this is not sustainable. You're not gonna get through with this. So I got a new boss. I tried to speak out, say, we need to look at my workload. I don't think I will be able to hold this. And she was new. It took some time. And eventually it didn't hold. The weird thing was that the weeks before my second burnout, I had the feeling that I was back.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about what you actually felt then.
I felt energy in my body. I felt the speed. I felt that I was juggling all the different tasks, and I did it, and it went well. And I felt as me, because I was so used to being in that state in my body where adrenaline was pumping, cortisol was pumping.
Superhuman Elisabet.
Yeah, superhuman Elisabet. The energy was just working until Friday when I went home and just couldn't get my thoughts together. And I knew that was going to be a tough week, so I booked a massage session on the Friday. But my body was so tense. It was like, it was no pleasure at all. The masseuse didn't get any near where me being calm. It was just like, this is pain, and what have I done, and how is this going to work out? So I went home that Friday. It was actually exactly 6 years ago. It was before the 1st of May weekend.
Okay.
And I just had to cancel all the plans. I was so tired. And I felt, again, a bit of a failure, because why didn't my body keep going at this pace? I enjoyed it, but it just wouldn't work with me. But I also realized what it was, sort of. And I said to my boss, I need to be home for a while, a week or 2, because I need to recover. After 2 weeks, I tried to go back to work. I had a big meeting with people from all over the country, and I thought that I will go in, I will do this. A colleague had planned it for me, the and the rest of it that was still left. But I just couldn't sleep the night before. And I went up, I went up at 3-4 o'clock. I wrote the email saying, I can't come, this is not going to work. And I sent it on delayed send, so they wouldn't know that I was up in the middle of the night. Yeah. And then I went to sleep. And then I didn't come back to work for 9 months. Because that was how exhausted I was.
Yeah. Going back here now, how does that feel? Talking about this now, inside, what do you notice?
I feel it and I see it, but it's not difficult. I've been through it in my mind and also in my book so many times that it's a story I almost enjoy telling, because I think it has some value, that you think, especially that you can think that you're in such a good place when it's actually totally unsustainable.
Yeah.
Because my body was just so used to being stressed.
Yeah.
That it felt like a normal state. It felt like my base state, my home. And it's quite amazing how that can be. And I think that so many people in today's society live in there.
Constantly.
Yeah. And they are so afraid, as I were, for stillness and silence. Vulnerability, that we just keep running through it. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I want to talk a little bit about your book. Because, and I think maybe you wrote it when you were on the other side or halfway
through.
Yeah, you started writing it. And in your book, you describe the body like a budget system, right? Where stress drains our resources. Can you explain a little bit about that idea? I really like this budgeting idea.
It's actually a metaphor for the biological process that is called allostasis. It's partner to homeostasis. Yeah, and homeostasis is a balanced state in the body. But as we know, balance is never still. It's always forces in one end and in the other end. So every time, we can just say that if you stand on one leg and I push you a bit, you will sort of lose your balance a bit, but then your muscles will bring you back in a stable position. And that's what our internal system does. So every time we're faced with a challenge, it could be I need to run to the bus, or someone's threatening us, physical, or whatever's going on. Our brain perceives this threat. It sort of calculates it before. It sort of predicts what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then they make sure you have the resources to do it.
Yeah.
So when you need to run to the bus, your body will release cortisol, adrenaline, so that energy in the form of sugar are released into your bloodstream so that your cell have the energy to do the running.
Yeah.
So that's a cost. Sort of, we need to take out some money. Then we need to recharge, which is what we don't really do. But the body has a phenomenal way of always finding a way back. So we have a push on one side, and then we have a bit of relaxation. You sit on the bus and you pant, and you breathe and try to get your heart to not pound as hard. And suddenly you're back in a regulated, balanced state again. But if we, over time, repeatedly expose ourselves to stressors, the body will adjust. And that's normal, that's how it should be. It's a bit like training. We lift heavy, and the next time we can lift heavier because we did it before. It's just that over time this has a cost, also with training actually, but with stress.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we repeatedly hit and not allow for the time for the recovery, yeah, then it affects our cells, and it affects our energy system. I find that it's not in the book actually, because I didn't know it at the time. Or I did, but not in a sometimes you have two puzzle pieces and you haven't really just built them together.
Yeah, exactly. There's room for a book number 2 there.
There's room for a book number 2, definitely. And of course, stress is about energy.
Yeah.
It's so natural when I say it like that. Stress is about energy. But energy is a concept that we sort of, a lot of in your community, which is partly mine as well, use as something very intangible and that we feel energy or not, and we can feel how it run. But in the body, it's actually, the cells need to produce energy to be able to function. And it's done in the mitochondria. It's sort of the powerhouse of the cell. And it was one day when I was out of my extreme burnout, but at times you can just feel how the curtain closes, how the energy just drain. And I was like, this has nothing to do with my brain, how it works. I need to come back to the brain. I forgot to tell you what actually happens in the brain. But this has nothing to do with changes in the structure. This is something to do with how the cells function right now. It comes from one place to another. And I looked at my body. I've gained a lot of weight during my burnout. And I said, it's full of energy. Yeah. In my fat deposits. But that's energy. That's the energy storage. But somehow my body is not taking that energy to actually make energy that makes me feel energized. Because I'm still tired.
Yeah, because it's not important for the brain and the body at that point.
But also, I think it wasn't possible.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not important for that part of the brain to work with that area. It's working on surviving, I guess, right?
Yeah, but the thing is that when cells trying to survive, they shut down the energy production.
Exactly.
So in surviving, this is a phenomenon that you can see in many areas of nature. If a bacteria tries to survive, it shuts down metabolism.
Yeah.
There are worms that can outlive harsh environments by shutting down. Yeah. So our cells in our body shuts down their metabolism, their energy production when it's under threat.
Makes sense.
Makes sense in a way. Mm-hmm. Still took me so long to figure it out.
Yes.
And I don't expect anyone to go into a doctor's office and get that kind of explanation to it. But of course, this energy shutdown has effects because every function in the cell needs energy. It needs energy to repair, to do what it's supposed to do. And sooner or later, it's going to have effects. And I think what we see in research is that animals and humans that have been under stress for a long time, they have changes in the brain. There are areas in the brain, the frontal lobe, for example, that where a nerve cell looks a bit like a tree. It has a trunk, and it has roots, and it has branches, and they're called axons. No, they're not. They're called dendrites. It's the trunk that's the axon. And the dendrites shrinks because the cell just can't keep it functioning because it doesn't have the energy to do that. So then, as an organism, we need to put the energy to what we need most. And during the build-up for a burnout, what we need most is the part of the brain that makes sure we have enough energy. Yeah. So that part grows. Use it or lose it is the mantra of the brain. So what we use the most when we always need more energy, what the researcher that where I read this expression, the body budget. Yeah. So the body budgeting regions, the regions in the brain that sort of govern the body budget and make sure that we always have the resources we need, that part of the brain grows. And other parts, which we might think are important parts, like thinking logically and rational thoughts and being able to control our temper or something, that's not important for survival of the organism.
Exactly.
That's an extra feature that we develop, we human people and other beings as well, of course. But it's not essential for living.
No, exactly.
So that's where we cut out and we give the energy to the parts that need them. Which means that we have a brain that is really good at responding to threats, but not really good at seeing if they're actually true.
Yeah.
Or seeing if it's a appropriate response to act like this, or doing all the logical thinking that we also like to do in our lives. So I think what I've learned the most is that a burnout is actually the body's way of trying to make us survive. And I think that when you start seeing it that way, when you don't see that the body is stupid and doesn't do as I like, or is sort of against me, when I start thinking that, okay, it's actually trying to take care of me.
Yes, always.
In ways that I don't always appreciate. But I need to accept that this is how my system works. So the fatigue, the burnout, the not thinking is signs of my body trying to protect my life.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the mitochondria and how the energy works, it's so interesting. And I really do think that this will be a new field. And when we start seeing, it's not only, this is also connected to our mood. Yeah. Because there's also a wonderful theory called the theory of constructed emotions that this researcher, Elisabet Hammaburg, a neuroscientist, developed. And her theory is that our emotions are actually our brain's way of trying to interpret these shifts in the body budget. And so then we can see what happens when we meet someone threatening, or we're going into a meeting when we feel a bit insecure. Our body, the brain says we need more energy, put out more energy. We either maybe feel like we want to fight, that we want to flight. Or if we want to fight, we grow angry. So we label this situation in the body with anger, or with fear. Or if we are threatened in our social status, we might call it shame. But it's always in the bottom, what's going on in my body?
Yes, exactly.
And that, of course, goes for all the good stuff as well. So happiness or love or whatever. And so when you think of maybe all psychiatric diseases in that way, you connect the body budget, the energy situation, the mood. You suddenly get a whole other picture of what that actually is. And I think that's going to be a revolution in medical society, and I think it's going to be far away, but I will do my best to spread the knowledge.
But I think you're right, and there is also something is coming. There is already a more acceptance around that the body and the mind are connected.
Yeah.
Luckily.
And
thank you.
yeah, I'm always amazed that we've actually gone this far.
Yeah.
And not really seeing that. You can still see how psychiatrists and doctors talk about certain types of diagnosis. Right now we have the debate about utmattning syndrome diagnosis in Sweden.
Exactly.
And how some of these doctors actually put the words in there. It's like, how do we not see that psychology is just, it's also just cells. I know not all agree with that. I have quite of an extreme view, I think.
Also because of your background, right?
Yeah. A bit.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't think we have a spirit, but or anything, but I think it's created in between these cells. I can't rationally see how it could be otherwise. And that's my biomedical background, I guess. The theology background we put away.
You can do that for a moment at least. Yeah. Because there is no healing without both approaching the mind and the body.
No.
And the soul, I would say, as
of
well.
Course.
Or the unconscious part of us.
Yeah.
Right? Which is also the trauma work and the inner child work. I want to come back to the biomedicine and neurobiology, because that's really your field of expertise, and I find it so extremely interesting to have this conversation with you. Also because I come from a different place, right?
Definitely.
But in what way did this background play a role in your process?
Oh, it played an immense role.
Yeah.
I think the difference between my first time of burnout and my second was that in my second I sort of found a curiosity that I needed to understand something here. That all this, I can't have all these symptoms, I can't experience the world this different than I did before if something hadn't happened. And what had happened? And I remember I was sitting I think I was sitting in my choir practice. Yeah. I try to go to the choir still. Because you need to have some kind of enjoyment in life. And I suddenly just had the idea that I should just Google brain and stress.
Yes.
Yeah. What can I find in the PubMed, which is the biggest medical database of articles, research articles. And I found an article saying just how stress can affect this different type of cells in the brain. And I was like, yeah, this is not in my mind. Good. It might be in my brain, but it's not in my mind. It's not something I made up. It's not that I'm lazy. It's not that I don't want to. My brain is actually broke. It's not functioning as it did before. And what I also understood at that part is that it's also reversible.
Yeah, it is. It takes time.
It takes time. Mm-hmm. It's not a quick fix
it's not
anywhere.
A 2-week rest.
Oh no, it's not. It's actually starting to learning again how to handle your life. And I think also that's where school medicine sort of go wrong, because you want a quick fix. I know doctors. I studied with them. Yeah. And I know that they're high achieving people like me. Yeah. And they want a solution.
But everyone wants a solution, right?
Also, the patient wants a solution.
Yeah.
Please give me the quick fix for this.
Please tell me what to do and how to do it most of the time.
And I think that the work that needs to be done to actually reorganize your brain. It's a very physical process of shaping new paths in the brain to do things differently. Is really it's the treasure and it's the challenge of a burnout.
Yeah.
But to be able to do it, and also to be able to get free, we have different parts that shapes us. We have our genetics, that's one part, which is not, well, I think one say that 20% of who we are in there. Then we have our entire childhood and life that shapes us, all the experiences we make. And then we also have the environment we're in. So all of these parts shape us, and it's always the relationship between the different parts that sort of decides, or decides is a bad word, but anyway, I asked myself, why did I get exhaustion syndrome and not my colleague?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question to ask.
Yeah. Why did they handle it, but I didn't?
So here comes a judgment. Here
Definitely.
comes a judgment, because in a way you look at them and you look at you. We should be the same. Why can they handle it and I can't? I'm a failure. I hear a lot of things in between the words, which might not be right, but still there is this... and I think a lot of people do that. I have definitely done that in the past as well. This thing about sammenligning, what's that?
I don't know.
I'm looking at you and I'm seeing, you know, so I'm judging. Comparison. I'm judging myself here, right? And we can't do that.
No, we can't.
Because of everything you just mentioned with our genes.
Yeah.
A trauma history.
A child that was bullied
Yes.
has a different body budgeting system years after.
Yes.
It's changed for, not forever, because we know we can reverse it.
We can transform
but without the awareness of how this kind of situation affects us, it's hard to do something about it. So I've done a lot of job with myself in seeing my patterns, not as innate or something stable and unchangeable, but something that I can look at. And it requires a lot of awareness, I know that. And it requires to be able to see something and pause. Something happens, I react in my normal way. I feel my body, I pause, and I think, okay, why did I react like this right now? Can I do something differently? Do I want to do something differently? And sometimes I just want to let that anger out, because sometimes that's what's supposed to come. Yeah. This is a situation where I need to put a boundary, where I need to stay strong. But sometimes it can also be, I know this is triggering because, and I don't need to repeat that pattern.
No.
And after many times of not repeating the pattern, you build a new pattern. It's neuroplasticity.
It is definitely neuroplasticity, and it's possible, and that's it's possible to change the way we are in the world.
And also the powerhouses of the cells, the energy, the mitochondria, when they feel safe again, they can also start producing energy again. This is, of course, the same. It's actually the same mechanisms in the cell as in other states. So if chronic fatigue syndrome, but then the reason could be a bit different. The viral infection, and so how do you tell the cell that it's free of threat? That's the big thing in this. And of course, if the cell still believes that the virus infection is going on, but it's not, that might be a more tricky situation than for me to get my cells to feel safe again. But in the end, I think it's about safety. And I think it's not about, we can be physical safe. No one is going to kill us or something like that. But our mind can also make our body an unsafe place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. I want to change the subject a little bit. I know something that was very present for myself during my burnout was shame. And I know that you approach this in your book as well. How did shame show up for you in your process of this burnout?
Yeah, it showed up in the first time as I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to keep this a secret. And I know now that that's a typical shame response.
Oh, yes.
And that this, if no one knows, I'm okay, sort of. Then they won't think I'm bad or less capable or whatever.
It goes with the good girl syndrome as well,
Oh, definitely.
Right?
And what made a difference was actually when I saw it. Sometimes you can't see it in before, but when I see it in hindsight, I know that it's a very specific moment when I felt really worthless at work. I couldn't help my colleague who needed to. I've started working again after burnout, but I was just in a few hours a week, and I saw my colleague was very stressed, and I felt really, really, really useless, and not enough. Definitely not enough. And I told my boss that you need to move me. You need to take me away from here because I'm filling a place that someone else could do some real work, but I couldn't. Yeah. My boss, she was quite good and said, okay, I think it's been a bit too much. I think we need to slow things down. That was a good response, not saying, okay, let's look where I can put you. But I accidentally came over, that same day, Brené Brown's TED Talk on shame and vulnerability.
That's a good one.
And I saw it, and I was like, this is me. This is exactly what I feel right now. I feel not enough. I feel the shame. And then she also said the approach of the vulnerability, how that's the way through it. And I was like, wow. And I actually came to you the day after. I don't know if you remember.
Is that right?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, that's interesting. So here comes the body approach as well.
Here comes the body approach, because at that time I had this experience with Brené Brown. I think I went, maybe it was a few days in between. I can't even remember. I think I went to my therapist, my psychologist, and I talked about it. And then I came to you, and I did the body work. And in the end of that session, I felt a calmness in my body, and the words I had in my mind was, I'm not enough. I will never be enough for everything. I'm not a superhuman. I'm a normal human, and we're not gods. And I know that some people, when I say that I'm not enough, it's like, oh, of course you are. You want people to feel like they are enough. But I think it's very good to accept that we are not everything for everyone, even for ourselves. That there's the vulnerability side of it. And that's okay. And that's part of life. And when we can stand in ourselves in the feeling of not being enough and find some kind of compassion in there, then we can do stuff, real stuff. Then we can do anything.
And then there is, we can definitely do anything from there. But then there's also a difference of being not enough for everyone else, but being enough just because you're you.
Yeah.
And it's
that's
two
the other part.
Very, very different things, right?
And also that I started questioning the scale You know, if someone is not enough, if someone is enough, then someone must be not enough, because there's a ladder that we need to climb.
Yeah.
But if we just skip the ladder,
Exactly.
yeah. So if we just step out of that comparison, and for me, that came in my acceptance of this, that this was a race I could never win.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And that maybe it's not a race at all.
And maybe it's not a race at all. That's really beautiful. So here comes some self-compassion and acceptance.
Definitely. Yeah, and that was what it led me to. It led me to learn self-compassion, which I think is the best tool. Yeah. If one can look at it as a tool, but I think it is. It's a practice.
What have helped you, if we want to, give your, not advice, but your experience to whoever's listening today? What have helped you develop self-compassion?
I think, again, the fundament of the self-compassion was the knowledge, the facts. That's how I work.
Yeah.
I need my fact-based knowledge of what's going on. That this, what happened to me was real and not a flaw in myself.
Yes, this is very important. Yeah.
And then I also think that learning to know my shame. I think we have a lot of shame in society, and I think most of us grew up with parents that didn't recognize how shame affected them.
Yeah.
And I think that's I don't say that I'm never going to feel shame again, because that's not the point of it at all.
It's also just a feeling.
Yeah,
it's
a feeling.
It's necessary for social
interaction.
Right?
And of course it should be, but I also need to be, I think I feel shame in situations where I shouldn't.
Exactly.
And those I start questioning.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's where I use my body a lot. Or, yeah, I think that feelings are in body, but they're also made up in the brain. And I think I know a lot of Instagram people say that you always need to regulate from the body up. I don't think that's true. I think you can change a lot with your thoughts, especially if you're a very thinking person. If you're like me, shut off your body's feelings. If you can do that with your brain, if your mind can sort of shut off the body and resist the information from the body, the mind can also help the body. But
I'm thinking about, there's something about an unlearning and a relearning.
Yeah.
And in that process of some kind of collaboration. Definitely.
So
there's not one unit that is, I mean, it has
not
to
separate.
work together. No,
Yeah,
exactly.
And yeah, as I said before, anyone should just be able to look at it quite objectively and say that, because we know that even if our brain sends out chemical in the body, it's the body that reacts. Of course, it's in both and connected, and it's top down and it's bottom up at the same time. But where were I on shame? No, yeah, sort of.
It's okay. Just
got lost here.
Keep
no,
being
asked,
lost.
what I said about the facts. I said getting to know my shame, and self-compassion, I would say. In general, emotional regulation. Sometimes I don't think regulation is the right word, because I don't want to change them. They're there. But I see it sometimes as a way of being able to shift my body's state.
Tell me a little bit more about that from your personal view.
From my personal view, I think this is where I used my body the most. yoga has been my go-to tool. Because I had 2 scenarios. I went in for discuss my pay during my sick leave, and it was awful. And I got really charged up with energy again, and of course my brain didn't respond well to that, so I was flat for days afterwards. But the second time I did it, I went in. That was of course a bit later as well. But after I went out from the meeting, I went to grab my yoga mat, which I had in the office. I took a small meeting room and I pulled it out, and I did 15 minutes of yoga afterwards. So I went from a state of being engaged and aroused to a state of coming back to my calmness and a calm situation.
And being connected
body.
to you.
And being, and in one way, it's also about using up the energy that I released. Because when the brain releases energy and we sit still, of course we need energy to think as well, but it's still there and it doesn't get the feedback up to the brain that, okay, we handled the situation, we're okay now. So I used and use yoga a lot to change my state of being. It can also be when you have a really dull day, when you don't feel energized at all. Move a bit in the body and you sort of come to a state when, okay, this is a good, normal state of being. So being able to change and to know, and to be able to change, you need to know where your home is.
Exactly.
I think that's why I call my book Healing and Finding Your Way Home. Because it's not somewhere else. It's not that you're supposed to become someone else. You're just need to find a place inside yourself that's actually a safe and calm home. And you need to find your way to that place when you've been somewhere else. Because you're not just supposed to stay there.
No, then we get stuck there, right? Then life gets very small if we can't challenge that security. So I see it like this bubble that goes like this window of tolerance that goes a little bit in and out, and we have to fall out of balance. But then it's the recovery, right? It's just how do I get back so we don't fall off the cliff, in a way. Yeah, don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, and I think what frightens many people when in burnout, that is, if you step too far out of balance, you don't find your way back, or it takes so long time to find your way back. Yeah. So shaping the tools, and I think there's not one size fit all people here. Finding the tools for getting back and getting out is sort of the key to start to have the courage to go outside again. Yeah. So I think that using my body in that way has helped me a lot, and I still it's not something that I can stop doing, because when I think back of being a kid, I could sort of not feel that I need to go to the loo for a day, 24 hours, basically. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think it goes back really, really long in my life that I sort of, my rational brain cut off the information, my own needs for my body. Mm-hmm. And I think that I need to continuously remind myself of my own needs. Yeah. And I can't stop doing that. If I stop doing that, I will probably go in burnout again soon enough. Yeah. I don't think I can unlearn what I've learned now. So I don't think... but you never know. It's always a balance between my body's resources and the challenges I'm facing. Just as that now I'm a bit more if the challenge is really big, I take better care of my body.
Yeah.
So I have the resources to actually handle it. But one never know what happens in life and what it leads to.
No. How does your sort of in the now it's a few years ago since you have your burnout, and I know that it still affects you. I mean, mine still affects me. I have to be around it, that budget, quite a lot.
Yeah.
But how does your self-care look like on a daily basis-ish?
On a daily basis is mostly the yoga again. I really try to fit in yoga on a daily basis. I also try to make sure that I nourish my body with food in a good way.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but I know that it's easier to have a good budget if I don't I don't really like talking about food, but because it's such a sensitive issue for so many people.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I'm really sensitive to high blood sugar. I feel it again. Now I know that I have this theory that my feelings are a reflection of how my body budget is. I know that that's an area where I don't really want to be, so I try to avoid it.
Yeah.
Or I don't like being hungry either, so I need to eat enough. Yeah. And because then the blood sugar get low. Anyway, but I also really try to sleep.
And you say try to sleep. What does that mean, Elisabet, for you?
It's not foolproof. I still have episodes.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep for some years in my second. Yeah. My first burnout, I slept a lot. I need to recover. In my second, the cortisol levels were so off that it affected my sleep. Yeah. And if I could do one thing differently, and what I think that everyone should try to, if you have a burnout, is to get the sleep organized, prioritize getting sleep. Yeah. And then activity is a base for sleep.
It is.
And not sleeping is also a stress factor. So what the body does when you're not sleeping, it tries to get more energy out with higher the cortisol level. Higher cortisol level will make lower melatonin levels, and the dance between these two hormones can't really work. So I would go out in the morning and get sunlight and try to really work with my circadian rhythm, and also really find a way to wind down in the evening. Do yoga, do meditation, do whatever works for you. But try to, I have these curves, you can Google cortisol and melatonin curves. Then you can see how it's supposed to be. And then you can try to arrange your day accordingly. So if you need to do something that is a bit more straining, you do it in the morning when the cortisol level should be high. Yeah. And in the afternoon, evening, you try to go down.
Yeah. Which is basically impossible these days with all the blue lights.
Yeah.
In a way. But that's a different story.
Yeah.
That's a completely different story.
But and also to give the Zeitgebers.
The what?
It's a German word. It's time givers. Yeah. They call it in the science to the body that this is morning, this is evening, and here is the day in between. And now you're supposed to sleep. And my brain has started understanding that again, but sometimes it just slips out of it, and it's like I just don't know how to go to sleep. Then I just lay awake. But sleeping is the fundament of recovery.
Yeah. We're about to round today off, I think, Elisabet. But if someone out there is on the verge of a burnout, is there anything that you would like them to hear?
I think it's important to note that a brain that is close to burnout don't really have the capacity to see what's important, because the filter is off. We have this really huge survival part of the brain that just needs energy to survive, and it can't see if a task is big or small, if it's a big threat, if it's a small threat. It's sort of lost the capacity to do that. So I think it's important to note that one needs help in this, and if one have someone one can talk to help with sorting out what is actually a priority in my life right now and what is not. That's a great thing. I think also one need to note that it's not selfish to take care of oneself. It's a prerequisite to actually be able to function. So maybe it's not bad that you take time for yourself and to rest. Maybe you're doing your kids, your family, your employer a big service if you do it.
Yeah.
And also, I think that the tiredness that you probably will experience if you stop running, it's not something wrong. It's as it should be, even though we might not like it. But it's the body's way of recovering from the budget deficit that's been there for a long time, probably.
Yeah.
So, and also that it is scary, but it is also an opportunity.
It is a growth portal in a way, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to reshape how we live our lives.
Yeah.
And it's not that I wish a burnout for anyone.
No.
But I'm actually quite thankful for the experience that it's given me and how I can live my life now, which I couldn't before.
Which you probably never would.
I probably never would. If I just continued, I would do my same patterns over and over again.
Yeah. I feel the same way about my burnout. It's I'm grateful for that experience, even though it was very, very tough. When I went through my burnout, I was in a state where I could not read. I could not read a whole sentence or a recipe or things like that. It really fucked up my ability to simply just organize letters in a book or a screen or something like this. So I didn't read much in that period, but there is one book that I wish was there when I went through my burnout, because I read your book more or less when it came out, and I find it so easy to understand and grip these very, very complex subjects, mechanisms in our body that are so complex, but you have an ability to really make it easy for me as a normal person that is not a brain scientist to actually understand.
You make me so happy by saying it, because that was really, really why I wanted to write the book.
Yeah.
Because I felt, of course I can Google and read these articles, and I could read during my burnout, which I'm extremely grateful for. And we can just see that that's because different parts of our brain got a bit affected differently.
We can talk about that later.
But also that this is knowledge that I need to share, and it needs to be shared in a way that is accessible
for everyone.
Yeah, for everyone.
Yeah.
And I also enjoy communicating complex things in a way where you can picture it.
Yeah.
When you can get a picture of it in your mind, how this works.
Yeah.
And I hope that there will be more possibilities to share that knowledge.
I'm absolutely sure
Yeah.
there will. Like I said in the beginning, Elisabet's book is called, it's Swedish, and it's called Förstå, utmattning, or Understanding Burnout. Can you just give us just a short resume what it's about before we round off?
It's both popular science book and a personal journey through the burnout, and I'm using myself as the example of concretizing maybe the science and how it shows up in the process of a burnout. So it go through different stages. I call it the wall, being lost and finding your way home. And it gives also the tools that I think was important for me. And then it also goes through the difficult stuff, the things I had to face.
Yeah.
It's not just brushing off, because we need to stay a bit in what's difficult and what we need to face to be able to go through the other side.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's just in Swedish at the moment.
I like that you say in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. If anyone listening who wants to translate, you're most welcome.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
It's just a matter of money, to be honest.
Yeah.
And time. But anyway, and I also have done short YouTube talks that accompanied the book. We sort of, me and a friend, who's also a stress pedagogue, we talk about the book and the different chapters. So it's really like a book circle to the book,
Beautiful.
but in YouTube. And
we'll link to that YouTube channel below. Just so
and I also have a course in the energy part, the mitochondria part, because I think that's so interesting. It's a bit nerdy, I admit that, and a bit into the science. But again, I hope it's in a level that's approachable. Yeah,
I think it is.
Yeah,
I think it is. I think we're going to round off today. Thank you so much, Elisabet, for wanting to come here on the show.
And thank you for listening to me.
It's been a pleasure, and I'm really sure that will be people out there really learning a lot from hearing your experience and your expertise on everything that happens in the body and the brain. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Embodied Living podcast. I hope you felt inspired and felt that you were in good company. If you are seeking connection or embarking on your own journey, you are welcome to join our community through my website, embodiedliving.se, or connect with me on Instagram @Kirstine.Ilum. Through our community, you can access more resources and information about ways we can work together, whether it's through workshops, sessions, or in the online community. I'm here to support you on your path of self-discovery. If you want to help me and support the podcast, giving a review would mean the world to me and my work. It's a great way of give something or some energy back to actually all of us who are creating podcasts. So if you feel like giving the podcast 5 stars and writing a review, I would be immensely grateful. It doesn't take long, and it makes a great difference for me. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and let's continue to explore, learn, and grow together. See you in the next episode.